Hello, Tom Pollard here with the Positively Pittsburgh Podcast. And today's episode, number 12, is going to be kind of special. We're going to start presenting a series of pieces about unsolved crimes in the Pittsburgh and Southwest Pennsylvania area. No, I'm not going to do that. A young lady by the name of Melissa Vada approached me a few months ago and said she thought it would be an idea to have an occasional piece show up on the podcast, and she's here with us today. Hello, Melissa.
Hey, Tom. Thanks so much. Really looking forward to this, and I'd love to jump into our first case whenever you're ready.
You're ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, so am I. Okay,
All
thank
right.
you, and let's get on with it.
Perfect. Let's do it. Hello, I'm Melissa Botta, and today on the Positively Pittsburgh Podcast, True Crime Edition, I will be talking about the cold case of Tonee Marie Turner. This case first caught my eye, not only because of the lack of evidence surrounding her disappearance, but also because the more I researched, the more taken I was by the beautiful way Tonee's family and her friends spoke about her. Tonee was a 22-year-old artist, teacher of children, lover of African culture, dancer, and ceramicist. Born in Pittsburgh's Braddock area, she was a fixture in her community, and friends describe her as magnetic, radiant, and deeply creative. Sadly, Tonee vanished on December 30th, 2019, and nearly 7 years later, her case remains unsolved. Today, I will be speaking with some of Tonee's closest friends. But first, I want you to understand who she was, the light she brought into the world, and how she touched others. So join me on this journey to understand the vibrant woman whose absence still echoes across the city. But before I introduce our guests, I want to take a moment and just talk with you about the case and the timeline surrounding her disappearance. On December 30th, 2019, Tonee completed her shift at the Studebaker Metal Factory in Braddock around 4:30 p.m. She stopped by at Dobra Tea in Squirrel Hill while waiting for her bus. Around that time, she spoke to her sister Sydney, who described the conversation as normal and nothing out of the ordinary. After she left Dobra Tea, she went to the bus stop for the last leg of the journey home to her apartment in Hazelwood. The bus driver later confirmed she got off at her usual stop, somewhere around 6:15 p.m., at Hazelwood Avenue and Giddings Street. And if you know anything about this area, you know that it's very secluded in many parts, and we will definitely be posting a map later on our social media sites. So it's a very secluded area, especially in the early evening hours, and it was December, so it was very cold out, probably not a lot of people around at that time. So when Tonee got off, from there she would have to cross the Homestead Grays Bridge to make it home to her apartment in Hazelwood. The Homestead Grays Bridge, as you know, is a very high bridge. Pittsburghers know it. It's about 120 feet above the river, but a lot of it is over the land, so only a very small portion of it is over the river. And as I said, she was last seen heading toward the bridge, and then nothing. Tonee was never heard from again after she was getting off the bus. Then, according to police records, somewhere between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m., Tonee's belongings were found on a walkway at the Homestead Grays Bridge. They were placed neatly, almost as if they had been staged. And I find this very, very interesting because usually if you're emotional, you're in the heat of a moment, you're going to do something rash, why would you place all of your items just so neatly? But to avoid speculation, we'll just go ahead and kind of get on with more of the facts. Among the belongings that were found were Tonee's purse, her shoes, a ceramic pot, keys, wallet, cell phone, water bottle, and her diary. So basically everything that you would bring with you if you were commuting. So nothing out of the ordinary there. The man who found her items and returned them to her family, and I wasn't able to find any more information about him, just that he was a firefighter. And my research shows that after this person found Tonee's items, they were able to contact Tonee's aunt, and they were able to unlock her phone. So they were able to see maybe the last person she contacted or try to get some idea of where she was at in those last hours. So from there, after they found her items, Tonee's sister Sydney was contacted, and a missing persons report was filed finally on January 1st, 2020, after family and friends had determined that she had not been back to her apartment. Now, I want to take a moment right here to stress to you just how important Tonee was to her community. I feel the community that she lived in, it was a very artistic community, very close-knit community. So the more I researched this case, the more I was just in awe of how Tonee's community almost immediately showed up for her. And I think that's just a real characteristic of being in Pittsburgh and the kind of community we just show up for one another. So I think that's such an important part of the story. So from there, her community shows up. There are search parties, vigils, flyers, and even a mural of Tonee was later painted on Braddock Avenue by local artists, and it still stands there to this day just as a reminder that the people of Pittsburgh are still looking for her. So sadly, after all of these efforts that were mobilized almost immediately, the police looked into it. No leads were found. There were periods of silence where it just really didn't seem like anything was happening in the case, and for the most part, it wasn't. My opinion, if any, is there needed to be a lot more visibility surrounding this case. However, in the years since Tonee's been missing, PBS, WQED, WPXI have done a tremendous job in making sure that she has been represented and that the voices of those that cared about her were able to share her story. But here we are, it's 2026, and still nothing is known of Tonee or what happened to her, and all the leads have drawn cold. Especially painful for her family. She is listed as an endangered missing person, and her family is just still left with that pain of not knowing what happened to her. So right now, as the case is, there have been no confirmed breakthroughs, no leads, just silence. So my hope is giving you some of the background on this case. I'm going to introduce our guests, and hopefully this will be the start of change. Hopefully we'll start changing this today, and we'll start reigniting her case a little bit more. Now that I've spoken a little bit about the case, I want to introduce you to some personal friends of Tonee's. Dr. Sister Iasia Thomas and Malcolm Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Good to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Doing well today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and let you start. You know, this case is one that really I feel has not been represented as well as it should be in Pittsburgh. And we kind of find this is par for the course a lot of times. If we could just take a moment and talk about that. Do you feel that this case got the attention that it deserved in the media?
I would say that in the first 48 hours and beyond in any case, there is attention and visibility and even at best on the ground searches. So I would say that in the early stages, the first few weeks and months, yes, but then that started to dwindle away shortly after putting community vanguard work and efforts at the fore of what we were trying to do. And it didn't just look one way. It was a combination of searching, mobilizing, holding one another in community. And ultimately, the most important thing was to not give up regardless to the narratives, because with media, there's a single narrative sometimes. And with community response work, we have to still be, we had to and still remain optimistic, even though we're going into the 6th year, I believe now. And so I would say, to answer your question, some, but the continuation of that continues at the community level.
I'll just give you a short answer. No, I do not think it got the attention that it needed.
Thank you.
I mean, there's an initial sensationalism when anything like this happens.
Right.
But after that, no.
No, and what I was most impressed with, and I grew up in a small community myself, is the response from Tony's community. I mean,
Hmm.
she was a beloved
Hmm.
person. So
Yeah.
really, I wanna talk to you about how would you describe her? She was a friend of yours, a coworker. How would you describe Tony? Because her community really just rallied around her when this happened.
One of the things, I'll go first, and then my wife will come in because she probably has to reflect on that for a second. She's the same age as one of our daughters, and so she was just like a mirthful, beautiful, happy. If she walked in here right now, she would come up and hug you. She's just like that type of spirit. She was always like interacting with nature. So you would see her and she'd be over to the side with the plants or have the children and she'd be squatting down, or she would be like dancing.
Oh,
Like the music would come on, she would just start dancing. She would be
okay.
dancing, this kind of spirit. And so she was artsy, like she was a chic person, like the way she
Sure.
dressed, and she was relatively petite, and she was just the type of person that people took to right away. She wasn't necessarily ostentatious,
Hmm.
but she was just warm and genuine, and seemed like she genuinely cared about you, and she genuinely was happy to see you, and that's the way she came off all the time,
And I
all the
noticed
time.
in every picture, she just has a smile, and it's this beautiful smile that
Yeah.
truly just lit up a room. I couldn't imagine anybody. Did she have any? It seems like she kind of got along with everybody. Was there anybody that maybe leading up to her disappearance she didn't get along with, or anything that you heard?
I'll say I would not have been affiliated with anyone who didn't get along with her. They would
Hmm.
have been completely outside of our circle.
Sure.
Like, because it's almost like she's the type of person, if someone didn't like her, it's someone you might just want to stay away from. So they wouldn't even be around us. I wouldn't even have encountered that person because she responded and everyone responded well to her. So I didn't know of anybody prior to this incident who would have ever had any issue with her on any level, and couldn't even really even imagine it, to
Okay.
be honest with you. I mean, you can imagine that with a lot of people because not
Sure.
everybody is
Sure.
popular or gets along with people, but she was not one of those type of people. So whoever that person would have been, it would have been someone who wouldn't have known or been around us.
Okay. Good to know.
Well, for me, as we know, the theme of love and relationships for a young woman of her age was something that was probably one of the many centerpieces of her life. And we do know that there was a transition, a place of transition that she was in with her partner at the time. And that was an area of exploration and healing and resolve. And I haven't read her journals, but I would imagine that the creative writing that she took up was helping her to grapple with relationships. And anyone that's experienced a difficult relationship or the potential ending of a relationship is hard. And so we do know that at the time there was something that was going on there, and it required a lot of emotional labor on her part. And I think that, when we look at what Positively Pittsburgh lifts up for us, that this is the space that being creative and exploring and dancing and being drawn to nature is an affinity that people gravitate to when they're going through something on the relational side in their lives. So I can attest to that. And then that became, without disclosing too many of the personal details,
Hmm.
the balance of the community work that she was doing, the teaching work she was doing, her practice as an evolving and emerging metal worker and ceramicist were all some of the muses that she took up to be able to keep going and forging ahead. So that's the best way for me to answer that question.
Thank you. So her art essentially was kind of a release for her. It was the way she understood and handled the world around her.
Mhm.
And if I'm correct, about 4 days before her disappearance, she was scheduled to move.
Yeah, she was going to move with her sibling, um, I believe in an area nearby to a place that had actually exhibited one of her bodies of work. She had put together a lot of sculptures that were inside of the
Wow.
Braddock Library way before the Braddock Library underwent its renovations. And the thing about somebody like Tonee is if when you give an artist a studio space to work out of, you can get lost in that space and it could become like a second home to you. So I'm saying that to say that her community presence and her community membership allowed her to not only work in her practice, but also enabled her to have the network of people that became and loved her as an artist, as a teaching artist, as a community member as well. Does that answer your question a little bit?
That does answer my question. So to me, I remember when this happened, almost 6 years ago, and the case coming out, actually longer than that, 2019.
It was in 2019.
Yeah.
2019. I can't believe we're in 2026 already.
Yeah.
But to me, I just thought here's this beautiful young person that has so much to give to the world. I don't feel that the case was necessarily covered as many of other cases would be. That's my opinion. But I'm wondering, she also lived in a very unique community, and it's one that I had not heard of,
Yep.
called the Owl community.
Owl Hollow.
Owl Hollow. And do you feel that because of that community, it's a very polyamorous community, if I'm correct? How would you describe where she lived?
Communities form sub-communities with different identities and virtues and principles and ways of relating to one another. What I'll say is while the community may have changed since we've been referencing the Owl Hollow community in Hazelwood, we know that when Tonee disappeared, her partner at the time and her roommate at the time were away.
Okay.
They had went somewhere out of town and were nowhere near the city of Pittsburgh at all. And when you're in what you describe as a kind of free love, polyamorous kind of environment, you're either going to trust or be skeptical of the safety of a person who's maybe, sleeping with their door open at night because it's a kind of keep your door unlocked type of environment. And we did hear stories of interactions because the case is still open from the perspective of what's documented, a person that she was around who will remain nameless at this point. And so her safety was a concern. When you walk that community, the night that she got off of the bus, you get off and there's a baseball field to left or right, depending on which direction you're coming from. And then you walk down a dark, very desolate, isolated road. And the weather was cold. There was maybe a combination of rain and snow. And we know that she allegedly made it home to her destination. But who was there when she got there, or the things that transpired after she got there that caused there to be some disarray in her environment, is something that we have to keep on exploring and thinking about. But as a mother that has a child that age, that is emphatically not an environment that I would want my child to walk home from at night off the bus. And the roommate and her partner at the time are nowhere near. And so
she was very isolated.
She was isolated. And when we went within 48 hours to visit her home, I noticed, and you may not be aware of this, Malcolm, but Tonee, on the Positively Pittsburgh side of Tonee's membership, she worked with our organization called Children's Windows to Africa.
Yes.
And in 2019, she had completed a onboarding that allowed her to be recognized by the community as a caregiver of children in the community. And we celebrated her and a team of probably 9 other people.
Wow.
And she received a, what do you call that? Plaque. When you give, not a trophy, but like a thing that you
Like
give.
a plaque.
A plaque.
Yeah.
Okay,
Plaque.
so that's the right word. So she had a plaque, and she also had, and she was also given a book. And when I went to her home, I noticed that her plaque and the book that she was given they were in a garbage that were sitting right beneath a mantle. And I noticed it automatically because I saw the title of the book and I saw the plaque. And I went over to the plaque and I picked it up and I held it and I looked at it and I put it back up where presumably it was, because there were other things that had also fallen, indicating that perhaps there was some sort of an episode either involving her and another person or just her or something.
Okay.
But she really worked hard for that.
So that's uncharacteristic of her.
Yeah,
She would
she
not have done that.
earned that. She worked hard for that. She completed a journey, and for something like a plaque to be fallen is an issue and something that I automatically observed. And so I removed it and put it back where I thought it was probably sitting before.
Okay, so that's actually very, very shocking. So to kind of touch on that a little from the time. So what we will post, and I hope to post some of the maps, because I did map Tonee's route home from, she stopped at Dobra Tea that night, and then she got off the bus, and the bus driver essentially was the last person to see her.
Confirmed it too.
Yes, and then there was a gentleman, I believe he was the son of a firefighter, who found the journals, or was a firefighter that found the journals and delivered them to the police. And in there, it was mentioned in several of the resources that I read that there were some hints of sadness throughout her journals, right? But it really never said to what extent, nor did it really raise a red flag to me, because I mean, I was younger once, right? You're in your 20s, you're very emotional, you're gonna write your feelings. That is what a journal is for, right? So nothing to me that seems unusual at all. And I'm sorry, you look like maybe you were gonna.
No.
Okay.
I just
The thing that's important that I'd like you to comment on, though, is that you were one of the last people to be in a community educational space that Tonee attended at Sankofa Village.
well, yeah, I saw her on the 21st of
So you can
December.
speak to her journey as well and what she was seeking.
And
Yeah, tell me
so
about
she
her
was
journey.
coming to a class about health and the winter solstice, just ways to kind of go into the new year
Sure.
and kind of have a fresh start and from a blank slate. And so she was there. She had come by herself, and she was attentive and taking notes. And we were there relatively late, till probably about 9:00.
Okay.
It was close to 9. I remember it was dark outside. It was fully pitch black dark. And I just remember saying, "Hey, do you need a ride?" She said, "No, I'm good." And she was smiling. I said, "Are you sure? I'll take you home." She said, "No, I'm okay.
Okay.
Thank you."
So nothing
And
seemed
she gave me a
off. She seemed
hug.
happy.
And then she kind of went off.
Okay.
And that was the last time I saw her. So that of the two of us, I saw her a few days prior, to 21st, so a little bit more than a week before that.
So nothing really seemed off about her.
No, she didn't
seemed
seem off at
normal.
all. And
Okay.
she was very, very involved in the workshop. She was taking notes. She was asking questions.
Okay.
She seemed really eager and enthusiastic about being there and applying things. So there was an indication to me at the time that she was going through anything that would, was uncharacteristic.
You
And
know
she
what?
was warm and kind of hugged us, people
Right.
that she knew. And she's like, "No, I'm fine,"
Just a loving person.
kind of
But
like
I
that.
know that if you saw her on the 19th, then 21st.
Yeah.
Sorry, I reached out to her because we were observing Kwanzaa as a community. And my last text message with her was asking her if she wanted to do ceramics with the children at our community event. And her last response was that she was going to be with her family and she could not attend. And within 24 hours of that communication between she and I, she disappeared. and we tried. And sometimes I think like if we would have had that time together, that community time, even some one-on-one, what could I have possibly learned? Or if she would have said, I'm home by myself, I don't have any, because sometimes
Right.
women confide in women in different ways, in more vulnerable ways. So we didn't have enough time to clench that moment, to have, because that would have been, it was I believe, the night, not New Year's Eve, but the night before, we had the Kwanzaa event at Legacy Arts.
Okay.
We were there together. So anyway, it just makes me think about our last experiences. And again, when we look at Pittsburgh Positively and its members, you're talking about a young woman who, within 7 days of going missing, was actively celebrating and observing the winter solstice,
Right.
was called upon to come to a signature and most essential gathering in the city, which is the observation of Kwanzaa at the community level. And then this happened within that very remarkable time of the year for us. Otherwise, if this wouldn't have happened. So it was a tragedy because we were so close to New Year's Eve at that point.
Right.
The new year was basically upon us. And when we think about the work that she did with us, we finished our work in August, and she also participated in a documentary, and I'll try to pass that over
Oh,
to you
wow. Okay,
so
I
that
didn't
you
know
can hear her speaking in real time. So when you think about when we finished in August, September, October, November, and December, whatever was going on with her during that 4-month window led to the unfortunate outcome and circumstance of her being missing. So whatever was happening in that 4-month time, personally, we know she was working in her area of strength. Because she was a hand worker. Handwork was her specialty area as a ceramicist, as when she was, and as someone that was working at Studebaker's Metal, I believe,
Yes.
is the name of it. But she was also dealing with the very, very deep and complex reality of what happens interpersonally as well. The one thing that I want to say for the record is that her identity and her evolution as who Tonee Turner is and remains is what I understand that she was exploring deeply. Another positively Pittsburgh inspired thing that I think is noteworthy is we did have beautiful conversation about her wanting to become a mother. And she said, I know, Sister you're older than me and you have children, and I really want to be a mom one day. What do I need to do to prepare myself for motherhood? And it was a conversation and a theme that the two of us were embarking on together. So when we think about Tonee, you have this person that's an artist, that's a community member, that's exploring love, that's exploring the vastness of who she is as a woman, trying to be learned and studying. Because I know one thing's for sure. If this wouldn't have happened, she would have been the lead ceramics teacher moving into what would have been her second year.
Seems to me, if I may just for a second, everything was looking up for her. I mean, I know, I've read some of the comments. Well, why was she walking by herself? Why was she speaking as somebody that used to be 20, 21, 22, that age bracket? You think you're invincible, right? There's no fear. Everything's good. And the kind of person she was seems very spiritual and very trusting and loving. And I think that maybe that was no big deal to her. So I know that received a lot of criticism from what I was reading. Why was she walking by herself? You would not believe all the things I did when I was in my early 20s. You just don't think when you're that age.
She was walking by herself because her partner and her roommate left. Her partner allegedly was going to a part of town or part of the country that her roommate was going to, and they drove together away. And for whatever reason, only the three of them know Tonee was not a part of that journey.
And I do think it's important to reemphasize that when I talked about my encounter with her, and I just saw the last set of text messages that we sent on the 23rd, she was kind of carefree.
Right.
If you were around her, she had like a carefree type of way. So I remember thinking, you don't want to take a ride? She's like, no, I'm fine. And she was kind of skipping. She's like, I'll be okay. And she kind of just like skipped off,
Okay.
and that was my last encounter with her physically. And I remember thinking, wow, she just is like, doesn't have a care in the world type of person. And that's how she was. And it also seemed like she didn't want to be burdensome to somebody else. Like she was just going to, there was a self-reliance kind of thing there too. But she was just, that's how she was. We'd be somewhere and she'd be like walking over there, like in the bushes with the butterflies and stuff.
Okay. So
She was very carefree. She had a carefree type of energy. So
Love
I don't think that she appeared when she was with us, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak to what was happening that night as directly. I wasn't there, obviously. And although the details have come out about certain things, but she functioned that way a lot, where she would just be off and just kind of just didn't seem to have a care in the world.
Her sibling is important when we think again positively about Pittsburgh and the relationships. Sydney was coming for her sister. Sydney, I believe, had roommates or a roommate already, but space was made for Tonee. So the themes that we're grappling with all these years later were just surrounded by this issue of, if this wouldn't have happened, the intervention, spaces of care and safety and nurturance and the change that she wanted were in arm's reach. Those changes were scheduled to occur so soon.
She had every reason to look forward.
She's going to be with her big sis.
Right.
I mean, when your big sister is like, come on, sis, come stay with us, that's positive.
Absolutely.
That's how we treat each other in the city when we're doing our best. And we were just so close to that. And that's the part that's really difficult. Her career trajectory, solid as a rock. Healing journeys with certain relationships were coming into view and in reach. But like you said, I don't want to overlook what you said. I did not read her journal, but we know that she was going through either the early stages of a breakup or a named breakup. And that's difficult and hard on anybody, even when you're emboldened, even when it's not about anybody, when she was clear about the transition that was coming in her life, it doesn't mean that there's not gravity there.
Absolutely. And that's a wonderful point. And, as I was watching, I believe it was the PBS special, and I saw Sydney on there. I had watched from a few years ago, and you can just tell how much she misses her sister, just the amount of love that was there, the amount of support she would have had. I mean, and the mural that is dedicated to her is absolutely stunning. I did make it a point to drive past it. It's beautiful, and you can just tell her sister and everybody that knew or knew of her just misses her. They loved her.
Can I just say for the record,
Sure.
too, that the first question that you had asked about media coverage and representation,
Yes.
maybe not so much mainstream like WPXI, KDKA, that type of situation, but with the work that PBS did, and then Sydney and I did 2 interviews. One was on WQED. My dear friend Amy Grove put that body of work together, and me and Sydney orated that together in a push to find Tonee. And then there was another interview that we did on Black TV where we tried again to make the appeal. And then when we walked, we tried to make the appeal. And when the artist came out, Marseille Washington Nixon is one. I don't know the other person, but I have to mention their names because they contributed to the search for her in ways that shed light on who Tonee was as a person. So the question becomes, how do mainstream institutions and community-inspired and backed initiatives come together to give the visibility that's needed? And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Black and Missing Foundation.
Yes, great foundation.
So when we think about those 4 entities, I'll say that our local, I'm in agreement with what Malcolm said, our local news media, well, actually WPXI did a segment. So if I count them, there were about 5 different things in addition to our community efforts. And that's positive about Pittsburgh also. But the issue was the momentum.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like Pittsburgh is one of those cities where we really do rally for each other. We get behind each other. We support each other. So to your point, while on the national level, I believe there should have been more awareness. I think Pittsburgh as a whole did a pretty decent
Locally,
job
there was definitely
right.
an
And,
outcry.
going forward, this is a case that I feel, and I'm sure you do as well, needs to just keep resurfacing. We need to keep it alive. We need to keep awareness about the situation. So for all those that are interested in supporting the case and just celebrating Tonee's life, what are some things that they can do to support her? I know there's a lot in the works for her. There's the walk and different foundations.
That's a good question. Well, I think that one thing that we can do is to keep doing things like this, is to keep talking about the issue and to keep trying to raise public awareness. I know one of the things that I do see is on social media and various social media platforms, people every year and all throughout the year will put her picture up and raise awareness about the issue. So
Right.
things like that, things like what we're doing here with, an auditory medium is letting people hear about this again. So I think just keeping the story alive is one thing, pardon me,
Sure.
that I would say.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those interested in supporting, supporting the case and celebrating Tonee's life, what are some things they can do?
So my name has been on the missing persons flyer for years. And once or twice a year, somebody will call me and it'll give me hope. And I'll just stop and I'll say, there it is right there. And we'll pause and we'll regroup and we'll follow the lead at the community level. But just simply call or text 412-689-2812. That is my number.
And we'll post that.
They can call me if they want to talk, if they want to share, if they want to contribute. You and another person within about 73 hours, when me and you first met a couple of weeks ago, had reached out to me. And I won't say their name to honor their privacy, but they were very interested in one of the questions that you had asked about the Owl Hollow community and what more can be done to kind of press in and think about that. And so if you see her, call. And if it's not me, call law enforcement and say that you saw her if you know of anything. If you're concealing something because you don't know if this is the right time to say something, that's somebody's daughter. She was our now 13-year-old daughter's ceramics teacher. And I think the best thing to do is to just not treat missing people. Don't assign a narrative that can't be confirmed. I'll say something that's not pleasant to say,
Sure.
but there are some narratives that she may have resolved to take her own life near the body of water by the, what is it called, the Grayson Bridge, Grace something bridge.
Homestead
Grace Bridge. Thank you. But a body was never retrieved.
No, and from my understanding, they did look pretty extensively.
One of the hardest things was when there was, and this is just as a mother, when there was a speculation of whatever the route is that's near that area, that it's possible that Tonee is going somewhere on this turnpike issue. I'm like, where is she going? Because one of the other things that is a mystery is that within about 72 hours or so, I could be wrong, of her vanishing on the other side of the bridge by CVS, somebody put her keys in her wallet and just left it sitting there right underneath the missing persons poster of her. And it was
that I did not read.
Yes, because what was on the bridge was a vessel that she had created, one of her ceramics pieces. And if I'm not mistaken, that contained, I believe, a pair of shoes, a jacket, and her keys.
Yes.
But then on the other side at CVS by her poster was her wallet and I believe her keys.
And I don't believe that got a lot of attention. That piece of information is news to me that I did not know.
Yes, that's an actual fact. We had
Sure.
news of a potential sighting on the Lincoln Larmer area. We stopped and searched there. There was a potential sighting of her on the Hill District. We stopped and searched there. There was an encampment somewhere along on the north side a couple of years ago, but the authorities cleared it because there were homeless people there. We stopped and searched for her, and nothing came of it. And so what happens when somebody calls me, it's a raw and numb kind of a feeling, but I have to focus and listen. And I've had a total of maybe over the past couple of years under like 5 and under people that have reached out.
And I think the biggest thing is, I can't imagine what you go through emotionally, mentally when people come and reach out. But you're right. Everything that you hear could be somebody that knows something. And I think the biggest thing to remember is somebody out there knows what happened.
Got that right.
Somebody somewhere, whether they don't want to come forward, whether it was an accident of some sort, which I don't believe it was, somebody knows something. And keeping her memory alive, continuing in the community that you all live in and the Pittsburgh community of just keeping her memory alive. Not necessarily, of course it's important what happened to her, but also celebrating the person she was. And that's what I hope we've accomplished in my discussions with you, to understand just the bright light that she was in this world and how much more she had to give, and she wasn't near done. Tonee were listening, I'll conclude with this. If Tonee were listening right now, what would you say to her?
I'll start by saying, Tonee, if you can hear this, we have not given up. We love you. You are beloved by many. And if you can hear this and she could hear this, then there's still hope in this situation. So I would just say that.
Absolutely.
I'd say that we never stop looking, paying attention when we hear something, and we're waiting for you to come. And when you come, you will be blanketed with love and care and support no matter what the situation is. So just come on back and be received by all of these people that love you, and just know that year after year after year after year after year, we never stop searching.
Continue the search. Thank you both so very much for your time and your candidness. And we're going to post, for all of you listening, we're going to post some maps that show her route, some ways you can get involved with Black and Missing in America, and just some other community resources that I believe will help keep her memory alive. So thank you both so much for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was the first episode of our Positively Pittsburgh Unsolved Crime series that we'll be running over the next few episodes. Maybe, Melissa, what do you think? Maybe one every other month? It's a lot of work putting them together.
Absolutely. It really is, and my hope is, I think once every other month is good, just to reignite some of the cold cases in Pittsburgh and help bring hope to some of the families out there that are still searching for their loved ones, or maybe have already found them and just want to know what happened to them.
So Pittsburgh, keep tuned in. And while you're at it, keep it positive, Thanks for
Absolutely.
listening.
Thank you. Stay safe.